You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
You first start to realize you might have the bird flu when you actually start producing eggs. Is that real?
You know what? No. Are you kidding me?
That's what I heard. I heard one day you're going to you get up from the toilet, you're like, whoa.
No.
That is an egg.
I had these weird wings sprout.
It's from his forehead. No, everyone was sick in December, man. My wife got sick during Christmas.
Well, she didn't have what I had, though. I guarantee you, I had what's called a man cold.
What's a man cold? That's a very bad cold or not that bad of a cold, but you act like it's the worst thing in the world, and you don't do anything to correct yourself. Is that right?
Well, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound so bad, but what I had was bad.
Was it really? Or were you just being a man about it?
I went to the doctor even.
What?
I didn't know what I had. I didn't know if it was COVID or flu or something, and they just did a bunch of tests, and they just said, no, you just got a cold.
You just got a regular cold. That's just so funny. It's like, I also did a swab because we didn't know if my wife had COVID or not. We wanted to get around, so I was like, uh-oh. I hadn't had a COVID swab for a long time. It was nice. I hadn't had anything shoved up my nose for a while. Felt good. Brought me back to the good old days, huh?
I was going to say, it's not like college.
All right. McDivittLaw.com, by the way, if you'd like some quality time, they specialize, of course, in personal injury, but he knows a lot. And if he doesn't know, he knows the guy who knows the guy. So we sent him a bunch of the questions. And this is, we're going back a little bit because this is like for November through the first part of December, this round. And then we'll do a whole new fresh one in just a couple weeks. You'll join us again for another. We're going to double dip the month of January. It could be the greatest legal January ever, McDivitt, ever. All right, so I tell you what, we got a bunch of these questions. I had someone hit me up on the text. They wanted us to give a call, so we'll figure out what their question is here in a few. But a couple questions we brought out of stories we discussed here on the air I thought were interesting. Can we talk about the Mega Millions double lottery ticket guy?
Yeah, you know what? Can you help me understand that? Because that's one thing I didn't really. I didn't have time to really dive into.
The story's still kind of like there's a lot of speculation in it as well, but the facts are this: one small place in like Modesto, California, some small little gas station sold 2 winning tickets for a Mega Millions drawing almost a year ago, maybe even more than a year ago. So they split it was like $1 billion deal. So it was like one ticket was worth $490 million, and the other ticket was worth $490 million bucks. And one guy stepped forward to claim half the prize, and then it sat and it sat. And it sat, and then going into like the last weekend in November, I think, on that Saturday, he's like, well, if no one claims it after Saturday, that money then goes back to the state of California. And then at the last second, the guy who claimed the winning half already says, hey, I had also bought that other ticket. That money is also mine. And that's where it ends, and he filed a lawsuit against the state lottery in the state of California. So the speculation is this. He's been playing the same. Now, we know he's been playing the same numbers for years. And that's why, because the odds of a gas station that small selling 2 tickets with the identical numbers, that's obviously even more staggering than selling one winning ticket, right?
Oh, of course. And then is he claiming that the 2 tickets had identical, they must have had identical numbers.
Had identical numbers, yeah. And they were, what he claims is his numbers he's been playing for years. And then the speculation sets up here. So let's say the drawing was on a Friday. He bought a ticket Thursday. And then Thursday afternoon, he's like, where's that ticket I bought? I don't know. Oh, I can't find it. I'm going to buy another ticket. So then Friday morning, Thursday night, whatever, he buys another ticket using those same numbers. And then sure enough, that night it pays off. Finally, it hits. And then he spent probably, I don't know what the expiration, I think it's like 18 months. So he's probably spent those 18 months digging through everything, tearing apart his life, trying to find that other ticket that he bought. And then once the deadline came, he got desperate. He's already got, $500 million in the bank. Probably has a pretty good lawyer on retainer. So then filed this lawsuit to try to say, well, it's mine. But how are you going to prove that it was you who bought double tickets without, is there anything there? I don't think he has anything, right? You got to have that ticket.
I think you do. But listen, I think that's just kind of how the lottery works. If you got the ticket, you got to, unless you can prove somebody stole the ticket from you. Then I guess somebody goes and they try to claim that they won and they present the ticket. It's like a pawn shop or the whole valet system. You give your keys and then they give you your ticket. You give them your jacket. They give you your ticket. And then you redeem the ticket and you get your jacket back or your car back. And so then you redeem a lottery ticket and you get the money. How do they prove it? Well, they're going to go through a discovery process. And one of the things that they'll look for, although after 18 months, his problem is a lot of the evidence is going to be stale, if not, non-existent at this point. One of them would be, like the surveillance from the gas station showing that he went back in the next day, clearly purchased a lottery ticket. Does the gas station have records of transactions?
See, I'm not sure how deep that goes, but I assume the lottery is a pretty bulletproof entity as far as the legality of it all goes. I mean,
they would, yeah. I mean, he's going to have to. He would listen. I don't. The bottom line is I don't know. I mean, if you can't present the actual physical ticket, does the lottery accept any, evidence that you did purchase the ticket, but the ticket is gone now? I mean, oh gosh, that's tricky.
The vibe here was multiple texts and calls about it. Dude, don't get greedy. It's like you already have $500,000 for doing absolutely nothing except for dropping a buck and 5 numbers. That's it. You're fine.
I understand.
You're fine. I get to, in my life, as I always think, like when these football players and stuff are like, well, I'm not going to play for $60 million. I want 65. It's like, well, dude, what can't you do with $60 million that you can do with $65 million? You get to that point, you're pretty much untethered.
Yeah, so for most people, that's it. They're done.
It's like there's not a big difference between 65 and $60 million, bro. You're both pretty good. So, yeah, I talked about just the fact that lotteries are so everywhere and such a legal thing. I don't think he has a chance.
There's so much of the law, and this is true. I mean, we talk a lot about it kind of depends. And it's an answer to many questions, and it's fact dependent. There's some things that are just pretty black and white.
Yeah.
You don't have the ticket, you don't get the money, and this could fall into that category.
You sound like a gangster. You don't get the ticket, you don't get the money.
You don't get the money.
Know what I'm saying? Dave McDivitt, he's our guest. Joins us once a month at least. And again, we're going to double dip this month. McDivittlaw.com, or you can settle the score. Just hit 4. It's 719-444-444-444 till someone picks up and saves the day. What is the other national question we had? Oh, this is interesting. And I guess it's pretty relevant now that they're still debating on what to do with TikTok if they don't sell it and take it out of those evil communist Chinese hands there. It involved the game Pokémon Go, which I'm sure you know someone who's addicted. In the building, it's Mo. I think she still does this game, and she goes everywhere. I found a Pikachu or whatever the hell it is. Like, that's great, Mo. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. But she was very well invested into the game, as well as a lot of people. And if you don't know, there's like they'll put a Pokemon, and you got to go try to find it, and you wander through, forests and downtown, and you can there's a couple that are tagged to this building. If you swing by Kilo, you can capture one here. But the whole thing was nothing but a data grab. The folks behind the game were using all those folks who wandered around this earth for years to collect data for a massive AI model that'll help robots navigate physical space. So basically, they just used all these people as pawns. They thought they were just playing a game, but they were working for the people behind the Pokemon app. How is that? I'm sure, and when you talked about this on the air, I'm sure it was part of that, accept the contract to begin with.
Conditions.
Yeah, and in there was like, hey, we have all your data. And it didn't specifically say that's the only reason we built this game is so you can walk your ass around and save us a lot of money. Yeah. How is that even legal? I don't understand. But it shows you how dangerous then, these foreign-owned entities can actually be. You think it's funny, it's just people, getting hurt on TikTok, but you don't know what's laying underneath it.
Yeah, listen, Ross, and this has frankly less to do with whether it's a foreign-owned entity than it does just the whole shift we're experiencing. I mean, I think it's scary.
We're being worked, man.
Yeah, well, sure, but I mean, it's everything that we do digitally is tracked in some sense, and you can do everything you want to try to limit your digital footprint so that you are not. I would call it a pawn in some corporation's game of trying to just collect as much data as possible about you that they can then aggregate and create these models that will then allow them to create automated systems that in turn, yes, are designed to kind of make life easier in many respects, but it's eliminating so much of what makes life. And when you do accept terms and conditions, when you accept a user agreement, you are oftentimes agreeing to allow them to use your data. And at some point, once they've collected the data, really you don't have control over how that data is used. So you've got a couple of options. Number one is to just decline to use an app. I mean, that's really the best way to do it. And the second would be, I think, a really difficult and uphill battle, but it's not impossible maybe to have some kind of a legal action regarding a particular invasive use of that data that was unreasonable and really couldn't have been anticipated. The terms and conditions are just full of a bunch of words.
Right, it shows you how just you're being worked. I mean, we've known for a while your phone's listening to you and feeding you, of course, commercials and stuff like that, advertisements based on your conversations, and that's creepy. But then to know that they build these apps and think, oh, so much fun, let's go, kids. Let's go work for the people at Pokemon. And here's the game's been going since 2016, so they've been collecting data for almost 10 years before this came out, that they've been using it to create this, and they say the data has already been used to train 50 million local neural networks, which are collections of machines that learn algorithm structures like the human brain to operate in more than 1 million locations worldwide. That's scary.
It is.
And it's all done by you for free, which is that's the sick part. It's scary and it's sick. Yeah.
It is, and listen, I think a lot of people have their eyes open when they use apps like this. And by the way, I mean, everything that's happening with social media too, and the voice assistants, the virtual assistants, the Siris, the Googles, the Alexas of the world too are doing many similar things. And Apple, for example, just settled a lawsuit based on the surveillance component of Siri, where it was clearly she was just listening when you didn't,
even if you didn't ask for her.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, look, it is scary. I have I don't go down a rabbit hole of existential concern here for people, for humans, and it's scary. I mean, but how much are we going to be complicit in that really depends on how willing we are to accept this into our life, and then to turn and rely on it for either entertainment purposes or to try to make our lives easier and to be more efficient. I mean, I use a lot of tools where I just know, look, I'm giving up a lot of privacy here, but in return, it's making this part of my life easier. But it's the same thing.
That is kind of like that. It is, right? You forget about how much you depend on your phone too. It's like it's killing Ross, you, but you need it.
Look at Amazon and what it's done to local businesses and retailers. And it's expanding into other areas too. I mean, it's expanding into the law and medicine. I mean, we start to rely on these tools. It just is so much easier to order a book off of Amazon. That's been the mantra for the last 25 years. And what has happened to bookstores? Oh. They've just disappeared. Remember the Chinook bookstore? It was an incredible bookstore.
Tattered cover?
Tattered cover.
We also, you can tag record stores along with that as well.
Well, absolutely. Independent. I mean, all of these independent record stores in general, where now to the extent that some have survived, they're surviving in kind of a niche world where it's this it caters to the retro component of it. I mean, same with video stores. I think there is one Blockbuster that remains in the Pacific Northwest, and Oregon. It survives because it's a destination now. Yeah.
It's like a candy store. It's like, oh, wow, what is that? That's so cool.
Yeah. My son asked me last night, what's a phone book?
Wow.
He's 10. I mean, no. It turns out I think that he does understand it. It's just in the context we were describing Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and there's Strong Steve, and Strong Steve, punctuates a stay off drug campaign at a school by ripping a phone book. Yeah. And my son's like, well, what's a phone book? And I thought, well, here he is, 10 and a half years old, and he's never looked at a phone book. He's never, and guess what? He's never lived in a home with a phone book. I've got him, but I don't bring it out much because it's I don't need it, and that's what's happening.
And then the big question is, all right, so once that's all that's left, then they can really stick the screws to you, right? It's like, I've decimated all the other folks that sell books. Now, if you want a book, come to Jesus.
Look what they're doing to Uber. Look, Uber, Lyft, these companies are employing or providing work for so many drivers. But in what they really were doing, and they continue to do it, is they're working to try to find a way to automate the cars and get rid of those drivers. So I mean, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. Can we talk about something happier? Because I mean, this is just.
We'll jump into some listener stuff here in a moment. Just to prove it's just a scary world. I heard a phrase this week in our visual reality has now been compromised. We put up a video of this alleged alien craft crash, and they released it, but they put up beforehand, hey, this is all AI generated. But it looks so genuine, so real. If they had released it and not said it was AI, people would have lost it, going, oh my God, look, what's going on? But then someone also checked in and said, well, maybe it's real. And they just said it was AI to discredit it. It's
here we go.
Yeah, no, but that's actually, we've been the sky has been falling for so many years, it's just hard to believe anything anymore.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
The brand new headset and all that stuff?
Yeah, but then it didn't work.
Oh, you're kidding me.
But really? You want to just put salt in my wound? You're just digging into it. No,
you know what? It's radio. Nothing ever works, especially around here.
Listen, I've got this new setup here. I thought, well, this is going to be fantastic. We are going to be the best duo on terrestrial radio ever.
We already are. We're going to even be better than before. And it doesn't work, huh?
No, it didn't. Right? And I was trying to talk to you. It didn't work. And so, whatever. I know.
Well, let's see if you can hear our guest. Dan wanted some time with you earlier.
Hey, Dan.
And what, you got a contractor problem, Dan? Is that it?
Yes, sir. That's the case.
Cool. Dan, can you hear can you hear Dave?
I can, yeah Dan.
I can hear you both.
All right, cool.
Great.
All right, well, again, keep it loose. We don't name names. We a contractor. You're looking to sue someone for negligence. What did they do or didn't they do, I guess?
Well, let me tell it to you. So this is the story. I had a contractor come over to my residence, and he had installed and replaced an old unit, but comes to find out he had did it under the table without going through all the right channels. And because of it, I ended up getting exposed to hazardous material and ended up in the emergency room twice.
What kind of hazardous material? What kind of appliance are we talking about?
So we're talking about a furnace there, brother. And then as far as hazardous material, CO2, carbon monoxide poisoning, and natural gas.
The thing almost killed you?
So, yeah, going to the emergency room, they ended up, doing all their tests and everything. They're like, you got a little bit of some junk in you, but, because of it, there's really nothing we could do for it but kind of just put you on oxygen and air you out. But they're like, well, good thing that, you called all the right people, because there's only 3 options that would have resulted into that. One being, being exposed to this for a prolonged period of time and turn into a vegetable, or die in my sleep, or worse yet, take out my neighborhood and the school.
Wow.
Yeah. So you had 2 critical leaks. You had the natural gas leak, and then you had the carbon monoxide leak coming from.
They were both connected in the same. It was both simultaneously.
Right,
Simultaneously.
Dan, was this a new?
When the furnace was running, the gas line wasn't, tightened up properly. But while the furnace was running, it was burning off. It was burning off too much gas, which was burning up the furnace, which was causing a carbon monoxide buildup, which has about a quarter of an inch of carbon monoxide ash inside the unit, which I unfortunately was exposed to.
Man, I think Dan's lucky to actually be here.
Yeah.
So
sounds like it.
Did the installer work for a company, or do they own their own company?
They own their own company. In fact, the owner himself was the guy that did it.
Sure. That's not uncommon. It's a smaller operation, the owner operator. What did you have? Idea? Go ahead, Ross. But I need to ask.
When you had, you said he kind of cut some corners. So did he not pull permits for it with the city? Did he? What did he cut?
So he did not pull permits. He didn't have any sort of inspectors come down and do a quality assurance test. None of that. My issue is, if he would have done his job properly and done his job and got the permits and had the inspector come over, I would have been exposed to hazardous material. both times.
No, that would more than likely 99.9% chance of nothing happening if they came and inspected it. All right, Dave, it's all you. What do you got?
Oh, was this a brand new furnace that he installed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it was straight from the factory. And how do you know then that he installed it improperly?
So I ended up calling the regional building division, and they had came down because I wasn't sure, because I ended up in the hospital. And I'm like, well, what's going on? I got to have somebody look at this. So I called them to come look at it. Yeah, come to find out, none of it was permitted. In fact, the last permit that was pulled on the house was back in 2005.
Okay, so they came. You had an inspector then come in and look at it.
Inspector come in.
Okay. Did they provide any explanation of the deficiency in the installation in writing? All of that's very helpful. I mean, you still have a claim against the guy. There's no question about it. I'm just trying to figure out how much strong evidence you have to show that it was because of the faulty installation, as opposed to, say, a mechanical defect with that
factory
particular
problem.
unit. Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up. I, in fact, got all that documented. So regional ended up having to fine a bunch of people, and it got to the point where Xcel Energy, or the gas company, got involved and confirmed that, the unit was just unsafe due to it emitting CO2 gas. This not a hazardous amount, but it's still emitting it, which it shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it broke putting a red tag on it, which is a hazard tag, and then they ended up closing out the furnace. And this was the gas company themselves.
Did you lose some of that, Dave?
I did. I did. And I think I missed a critical part, because you started to explain that the unit was, they sent an inspector in the unit, and then can you say that again, Dan? I'm sorry, and for everybody who's listening on the radio, I'm sorry, but it was just there's a bit of a bad connection from Dan, and I missed critical words.
No, okay, I'll go back about it one more time. So a contractor had came over to the house and replaced and installed a new furnace unit.
Right.
And as far as I was concerned by the contractor, everything was good to go until I started feeling sick.
Okay.
Right.
We got that, I think. We're going we talked about the gas company was involved somehow.
That's it.
What was that?
So after feeling sick and go to the hospital, I ended up calling the gas company, and they came over and looked at, and they inspected that, there was a fitting that was the wrong fitting that needed to be replaced on the unit. And so they were supposed to hand that paper off to the contractor. Contractor told me he got it fixed, but he didn't. And then it got to the second part where something really messed up in the unit, and I ended up going to the emergency room again, and the gas company ended up coming over again. They're like, wow, whatever this guy did, he didn't do it right. Now,
so he did it worse the second time, is what you're saying. So basically, he came, put it in, it was faulty. He says he fixed it after the gas company showed you what was wrong. It still didn't work. You went to the hospital again. Yep. And then what's with the furnace now? Did you finally get it fixed with someone else or what?
So after the gas company, that's when regional got involved, and that's when it was confirmed that it was an illegal installation due to it being an unauthorized modification of a home. Now, as Ross was saying, so the furnace is still being worked on as we speak now, but I was without a furnace all of December, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. The snowiest December in history, too.
So,
all right, so you got enough of that story, I think, right?
I think so, too. I don't want to get too into the weeds, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to understand a little bit more, because what you really do have is you certainly have a claim against the guy. And I was just trying to figure out if there is an issue mechanically where, he did everything right. It's just you had a lemon. But it sounds like this really had to do everything with faulty installation. So a couple of things. Number one, you were in the hospital. You've accumulated medical bills. These are what they call the damages. What can you sue for? Like, what would you get from a lawsuit or from a claim against his he should have some kind of an insurance policy to cover things like this. I mean, most people in business have some kind of an insurance.
But I
policy
wonder too if he's cut those kind of corners and not calling for permits and stuff like that.
I
Is
worry
he
about
carrying
that.
the right kind of?
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
So you have a couple of just obstacles to make sure you can get through before you're able to collect anything. But one of them is just making sure that there is it's collectible. Like, does he have an insurance policy? Because you could file a lawsuit for a couple of different things. I mean, and part of it's going to be based on a breach of the contract that he was supposed to do, and warrant good work. And so there's kind of this, whether it's an implied warranty or there's an explicit warranty built into whatever agreement you had with him, that certainly is going to underpin one of your claims. And then also you're going to bake in some of the damages. Now, obviously, you seem to have recovered physically, which is good, but you do have the experience of going to the hospital.
Have you even seen your bills yet? Excuse me. Have you seen your bills yet, Dan?
No, I haven't, and I'm more worried about seeing that I was exposed to this for a pretty long period of time. I was just more worried about that.
The long-term exposure, and the doctors be able to kind of walk you through that. I mean, like they said, some of that can, I think, clear out through your system. I mean, if there's no neurological damage to you, I mean, I'm not qualified to say.
I was a carbon monoxide addict as a young child, and I was on the carbon for a long time, but I kicked it okay.
Well, that's good.
30 days is out of your system, I'm told.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So I was a carbon head.
What does that even mean? You don't need to talk
about kids hanging out behind the dumpsters, smoking carbon. Oh, it was a terrible scene. Terrible scene. So, all right, well, let's get to where does he start? And then, because this could apply to so many people who have a problem with someone who's done something wrong when it comes to an install.
Okay,
Where do you start? Do you call that guy and get his insurance company information? Is he going to be legit with you or what?
Yeah, he may not even take a phone call. He may not provide it. You ought to be there. There are, is he licensed? You could look at try to get online and find his license status. And
he has a license, right?
Yeah.
Yep. He can't work on an HVAC unit or any kind of commercial thing without one.
Right, I understood. Yeah, but make sure it's valid. And you can search on that. You can certainly hire a lawyer to help you proceed with a claim. The other thing that you can do too, and I don't know, if you want to go this route, you could do some of it yourself, because I don't know what the cost to repair the furnace is. I mean, these are some of the hard costs that are, I think, far easier to collect on, given your situation and the fact that the carbon monoxide poisoning is kind of this amorphous, like, future damage to you right now. And if you just focus your world on what your hard damages are right now, you may find an easier go at it. So I think that what I'm getting at is you could do this in small claims court too, because I don't know what the cost to repair the furnace is, your medical bills. But they can slowly creep up to a point where you're above $1 threshold for small claims court.
So, and what's that threshold again? What's the small claims court up to what?
I thought it was $7,500, but you know what?
I bet that. What would the install? What did they charge you for the furnace, Dan?
This is through home management. I'm a renter, so I'm not actually the one paying.
Actually having to pay for it. Ooh, does that change things a bit too now? Because now you have the landlord involved.
Yeah, it changes the damage calculation. Yeah, but
oh, man. So, wow. I mean, I don't think...
but the fact that he's been without heat, I mean, those are...
Right.
Look,
I'd pull the landlord in and let the landlord do all the heavy lifting, because obviously he's going to have to get involved in one way, shape, or... What is the landlord like?
But then that brings up another thing, too. I mean, has the landlord not been able to provide you accommodation in December for the fact you didn't have heat? I mean, do you have a...
They gave me space heaters.
Space heaters.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
They asked for accommodations, and they were like, well, we'll give you space heaters. And I'm like, okay. I don't know how that's going to cover a whole square foot.
Right, and how expensive that is on your electric bill, too. My God, those things are not efficient.
It was $300 the last time.
Okay.
That's just...
I mean, Dan, you've got a claim. There's no question about it.
Right.
I think you have to really analyze, is it worth pursuing it? Because I guess now I see why you talked about your future damage, because except for the hospital bill, you're not out of pocket too much. Now, not to minimize exposure to carbon monoxide. The claim against the landlord then is another thing, because that does, there are claims for, against from a tenant has against the landlord if the landlord doesn't provide a safe place for them.
Right, and it's the landlord's responsibility to make sure the guys pull the permits and stuff like that.
Exactly.
That changed the whole story dynamically because, again, and damages too, because now he's just a renter, so he can't really seek anything for the faulty install because that's not his. But
right, as far as the costs,
by the guy,
those costs.
And that goes to the landlord.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
wait for the bills, I guess. Wait for your medical bills to come in and see what that's at. $7,500. That might be something you could file on your own and make that. They'll just give you money to go away because I think it's that obvious, right?
Yeah, and then so in this sense, you theoretically have two claims: one against the landlord, one against the actual guy who did it. It's the question is how far do you want to go with this? Is it worth your time to really pursue some of this? And that's why Ross brings up a good point. Look at what your hard damages are, the medical bills, because that to some extent in a case like that's going to anchor kind of what you think the value of the claim is going to be, because it's really tricky to pinpoint what your future damage is medically, both in the hard cost for additional medical care, diagnostic care too. Mm-hmm. There's a cost to continue to check to see if you've developed anything that could have been caused by the exposure to the carbon monoxide and the natural gas. But you're going to have to kind of navigate some of that and decide if it's worth it for you.
Yeah, so just wait for the first bills to come in. If they're going to be more than $10,000, some of you probably want to grab a lawyer and go hard at. Otherwise, if it's a couple $1,000, you could probably file yourself pretty easily and get that maximum amount and kind of walk away and hope for the best in the future, though, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Dan, are you having any lingering issues? Medical.
He called me Ralph early. He called me Ralph Ford earlier.
You're the Ralph Ford guy.
Side effect.
In the membrane here, but as far as everything else goes, I can't honestly tell. I feel fine, but I'm just like, well, if I didn't do what I did and just let this proceed, I would have ended up dying. And it's kind of just crazy that, I talk to everybody and it's like, unless I'm dying or dead, I don't got a case.
No, that's not true. You do. It's just that there's some area of the law where there's like this, and you could be punished civilly for that. There can be an award that just kind of bakes into that amorphous valuation of what that risk could have been. There's no question about it. You do have a claim. I'm not telling you don't have a claim. What I'm saying is you have to decide how much of your time and energy you want to spend, and possibly legal costs too. There may be some lawyers who would take this on a contingency fee.
And what kind of lawyer would work this kind of case? This isn't necessarily a personal injury thing, is it?
Well, to some extent it is. Yes, because he was injured. He physically had to go to the hospital. That really gets into that whole personal injury concept. The other alternative would be, is it a breach of contract? Is it just a claim where you're out the cost to repair an object? But in this one, he medically was impacted. So yes, there's a personal injury component to it too.
So he deserves his medical paid, and could he get also his December rent back? Is that in the realm of possibility?
Among multiple possibilities. Yeah.
All right.
But again, that's going to be part of the whole, discovery process. What's the cost? Can you put a number on that? And then can you get a jury to go along with you on that too?
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
So Nicole, hello, McDivitt Law Firm. My neighbor lights shine into our bedroom during the summer/winter. We have blackouts. Oh, I have blackouts all the time too, Nicole. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry, blackout windows through the winter months, but it still shines through the bathroom window. Both neighbors keep their lights on all year, all night long. After talking with one neighbor, after we replaced the fence that blew down in the wind, they agreed to keep their light off. However, it lasted only about 3 months. Now it's been on consistently since then. Other neighbor not only has lights on all the time, but the dogs bark a ridiculous amount way after 10 o'clock. We're dog people, by the way, but this is an OG. She's an original gangster. And the new neighbor's not been that great. I can show the rest of the neighborhood at night. It's dark. with the exception of these two. I think they're disrespectful. I don't know what the laws are in El Paso County. David McDivitt, please help us.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think I'll be honest, I think the dog barking thing is the easier issue there, because there are specific ordinances in El Paso County.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, in Colorado Springs. Now, I don't know if they're in the county, outside of city limits, but in Colorado Springs, for example, if they're in the city limits, there are regulations, municipal codes that dictate what you got to do to abate your dog barking, and the whole complaint process and how that works, and with animal enforcement getting involved. And so, look, you can't, as a dog owner, you got to make sure that the dogs aren't unreasonably barking. And if there are complaints, there is a whole process for going through that. I mean, it includes, obviously, alerting the city to it, and then getting an independent witness who's not part of your family to also corroborate that the dog has been barking an unreasonable amount. What they're really looking at is the homeowner or the dog's owner or keeper doing a reasonable job of making sure that the dog's not barking, bringing the dog inside, and then there's a formal process for dealing with that. So it starts with putting the city on notice. As for the light, you're looking at kind of what we might call light pollution, which is typically kind of more like a broader societal concern that cities will have to ensure that they don't have too much light throughout the city impacting people. It goes into new construction issues, city streets, different rules and regulations for how lights are installed. Can you have lights that point up? Yes, but they have to have a cover that helps keep the light from just going straight up into the sky. But
so there are some definitions of proper lighting, just like there are with dogs?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
And, but every city and county is going to be different. Again, is it just in the county? Does El Paso County have that kind of thing? And then does it rise to the level of a nuisance that's actionable? And I haven't dealt with the light pollution issue or a light nuisance issue. So I'm a little unclear about how that would play out. I mean, I think the fact that they've talked to their neighbor before, are these outdoor lights? Are these lights coming from inside their house that just shine out through the window and then into the neighbor's window? Are these their patio lights, for example, or their
I'm assuming patio lights, but I mean, she does not specify on.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there are some reasonable things that neighbor could do if you just talk to them and say, hey, look, would you be willing to, consider a motion detector attached to your lights, something, because they're on all the time. They shine into our bathroom window, and is there a way that you just kind of abate the issue yourself by putting some blinds up? And again, that's
a late Christmas present for your neighbors, a brand new motion sensor light, like that. I mean, that's kind of where you start. You don't want to go, reporting people's dogs. That kind of escalates the whole thing.
It can be a challenge.
Maybe a little barbecue, invite them over, little couple beers and say, hey there, pal, now you're feeling good? Can you turn your damn lights off? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, come take a look at my indoor freezer. It's huge. Come step inside here.
Hey, I want you to meet Mr. Hammer and my new deep freezer.
Hello. Listen, dark. I think I'm a proponent of just trying to communicate with the neighbor before you start making those complaints, because it can. And
if they did it for 3 months, they just might have forgot to. I mean,
that may be it too. But I think most neighbors don't want to inconvenience their other neighbors, but they also have a right to want to be safe and to feel safe. And the lights that protect the perimeter of their property, but there are other lights that they can install that could help keep the light from going like
half the
property.
There's so many great portable solar lights now that are very, very, very bright and pretty cheap, and you can hang them all over your backyard. They're all attached to sensors. They all charge for free, and they throw off some great light. Better way for defense anyway, right?
Well, I think so.
Well, Nicole, good luck there. Anything else? Hit us up. Like I said, try calling you into your voicemail. All right, let's see here. We only have a couple minutes left. This is kind of a heavy one. It was in regards to the changing of the guard with the new president and talks of mass extradition for immigrants. Well, as Colorado citizens, what should we be concerned about? And would you represent someone in a case of extradition? Do you think are people like lawyers? Do you have lawyer friends that are now kind of getting ready to become extradition lawyers? Is that going to be a thing?
It's already a thing in the sense that there are many lawyers who specialize in helping. Now, I guess I want to make sure we know what we're talking about, and I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to just.
Well, I don't think we know what we're talking about yet.
Well, I think my instinct is that this person is saying, look, now that the Trump administration is coming in, Trump has said he has these plans to deport people. There are concerns about various cities that are labeled sanctuary cities. And so, you have one side of the political aisle that wants to crack down on sanctuary cities. You've got the other side, and especially as you get far into the left side, of people who say, look, we ought to have cities where people feel like they can come and they're not going to be deported. I think that's one issue. And that's a very heavy issue. Abortion is another heavy issue, where you talk about different states have different rules now that dictate whether somebody can have an abortion, and so you have people wanting to go to another state to have an abortion. So there are multiple things here, and then you have this idea of extradition, which is it's another concept, which, by the way, was in the news a lot with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. And the guy who killed him, Luigi Mangione, who was in Pennsylvania when they got him, but he was being charged in obviously Pennsylvania, but clearly in New York, and getting him extradited to New York. So extradition is one issue here. And then are we talking about extraditing people who have been accused of a crime in one state to another state when there is also an immigration issue at play there too, because they're not in the country legally? There is so much that's going on with all of this. So let me just start by just saying quickly, extradition is a process where essentially, when we're talking about state versus state, where one state is saying we want that person back so that we can prosecute them in our state for a crime that they committed or that we are accusing them of committing in our state. And it's a very formal process. There's not a great defense to an extradition. Many defendants will waive extradition because it can be a headache and they can be just delayed in their incarceration in one particular state when they're just going to need to move forward with whatever criminal proceeding there is in the second state. It involves the governors putting a particular warrant in place and that notice getting to the other state saying we request our citizen back or this person back who committed this crime. And it's there's just a formality to it.
Just to put myself in their position, I think maybe they're picking the wrong word when it comes to extradition. I think it's more of a, let's say, I am a citizen. My parents are not. My parents get dragged out of this country and sent back to wherever.
Yeah.
Is that something that is going to be defensible? I think is kind of maybe what they meant there.
If a person is in this country illegally, and that can mean a couple of different things, but for the most part, they don't have to be a citizen to still be here legally. But if they are, there's a very real deportation risk, and it can split up families because you have some people here who were born here and are therefore citizens, but their parents have been here, let's say, illegally for 40 years. Never went through the formal channels to gain legal status here, but they've been able to survive and work in the system. And will they be deported? And my guess is that the new administration is going to look to have policies in place, and this is just my guess, that will focus on the high threat actors, people with more of a criminal record here in the United States who are also not here legally and for some reason have just not been deported. We clearly need programs in place, facilities in place to make sure that those people don't come back in.
That's the thing. It's broken to begin with. Which is I'm always to call myself the man without a party because I don't 100% invest in either of these quote unquote parties they're offering up. Both have good ideas, I think, but I'm not wholeheartedly on board with either of the reds or the blues. I mean, ever since 9/11, I've been a proponent of we need border walls. We need to shut down our borders because, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like us. I don't know why. I mean, I know. And I was brought that up after the 9/11 attacks. There wasn't even a word for it. Now they call me an isolationist.
Oh, gosh.
Right? That's the phrase that throws around. But we need to button things up. But we can't then universally just destroy these lives of these people that we let into this country and are now intricately involved in our communities and in our businesses.
And they're contributing.
And that's the thing. When you set up a thing, you're a felon who's not paying taxes, gone. You're a family, you've been paying taxes. Maybe you've been doing it kind of illegally, but you've been here and you've been doing good. Welcome to America.
I'll tell you what, we just fundamentally don't have the resource to just do a blanket deportation of everybody who's not here legally. And I think that's not a good common sense approach. There is one thing, though, too, that has to do a lot with making sure that people feel safe, that if they are here illegally, they're not creating a problem in the system. And for some reason, they were a witness to a crime. And it helps us get the criminal to be able to interview them and to get their witness statement.
Man. I never even thought of that.
But yet they're reluctant. They don't want to do that. They're not going to come forward and help actually solve a crime and put a bad guy away because they're worried that what's really going to happen is they're going to be sent out of the country. Wow. And so let's hope that there is, we just have to, I have faith, I hope I'm not naive, that there's some common sense that goes along with how we approach these policies. And
but it shows you the ripple effect of every little thing that happens. I mean, because that's, again, an angle I hadn't thought of. Yeah, a guy could witness some horrible murder, be the man who could convict a monster, and he wouldn't come forward because he was scared of being dragged back to wherever he came from.
Yep.
Wow. It's been a scary edition of the David McDivitt Show.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Thank you for listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM, presented by McDivitt Law Firm.